Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. For those of you who aren't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button and hit the little bell next to it. Ring my bell, baby. Oh, and a bunch of people have noticed since I said that recently, like regular subscribers have come over on social media and said for some reason they had been subscribed and they reached down to click that and realized they weren't subscribed. So just a reminder for a lot of you out there who watch my stuff regularly, YouTube has had something happen with their system lately to where people have been automatically unsubscribed off and on, so you might not be subscribed. Go ahead and check that out and double check that. Over to the point. I had someone link me a two-part series that Greg Doucette had done asking me, hey, what do you think about this? So I checked it out, and I almost got through the first video, and I need to check the whole thing out. But what I thought was interesting is that Greg raised some interesting points, and I'm actually going to almost say, just based upon the whole initial first half of this series, I would hope everything that he's saying is common sense. Like, not only is this a case of saying, yeah, Greg is right, but what he's saying should be common sense at this point. This shouldn't even be anything revolutionary. Now, for a lot of people, it might seem that way, right? It might seem like what he's saying is just totally revolutionary, but to anyone listening, if you understand the human body at all, or coaching or training or anything else, everything he's saying should just be common sense. You should be able to just listen to that and say, well, yeah, that should be obvious. But the funny thing is that it isn't obvious, and it's that we have so many people out there who don't understand these things. And it's basically talking about bulking versus cutting and how many calories do you need to gain muscle. And he talked about that a lot. If you have someone who's already fat and a coach is telling them to bulk further, right, telling them to bulk further, that coach is an idiot and you should fire them. As a coach myself, I agree. I absolutely agree. In fact, out of all of my current clients, I only have one person bulking right now. One person. People say, well, why do you have him bulking? Because I can't put any fat on him. He literally has a six-pack right now. All right? 7-8 weeks into his bulk, he has a six-pack. People would say, well, what do you mean a six-pack? Like a little outline like what you have, Jason? No, he actually has a deep six-pack after like 7 or 8 weeks of bulking. Okay, deep abs in a bulk, couple months in. So I think he's going to be okay. I don't think there's an issue here. In fact, I'm struggling to put weight on him. His weight gain has been really, really slow on over 4,000 calories a day, right? So I don't think this is an issue here. So the point Greg makes is that based upon your body fat, and this is how he worded it, based upon your body fat level and your energy turnover, you may or may not even need a calorie surplus to gain muscle. And in fact, in many cases, you can gain muscle while losing weight in a deficit. This can be done. And you know what? I'm going to agree with this. I'm going to agree with this. And he talked a little bit about body fat percentages. And what he also pointed out was that, look, if you're someone who's trying to be a heavyweight power lifter or go compete in strongman, this video isn't for you, don't worry about it, but you're less than 1% of people out there lifting. You know, you need to just bulk and get fat and do whatever. I'm going to say he's only right in a certain context, because most power lifters, as Greg knows himself, who's competed in a weight class, and that's one thing that people need to remember. Greg is a shorter guy, has competed at a medium weight class at a very, very low body fat and produced some phenomenal numbers. But, you know, realistically speaking, if you're 5'6" and you're peeled at 190 something, which is what he did, you're going to have some phenomenal numbers, right? Some phenomenal numbers. Not everyone's going to be able to pull that off, but he knows firsthand. Obviously, most powerlifters are in a weight class, and even for powerlifters, being on the leaner side can be a real advantage in your weight class. What is it that a lot of coaches will tell you, even in powerlifting? If you're the shortest, leanest guy in a weight class, you're probably going to win, right? Pretty good chance of that. Not guaranteed, but you got one heck of an advantage. Problem is, you know, in the 308 weight class, nobody's lean. Like, it's kind of hard to have a deep six-pack at over 300 pounds. You know, it's pretty relatively rare. But Strongman's the same thing. People are only seeing world's strongest man, and I think we should go over and say, let's not even talk about 1% of people who lift. Let's talk about 1% of strength athletes. Okay? Only 1% of the strength athletes are even ever going to be in a weight class where they should be considering being over 20% body fat, right? So we're talking about a tiny minority of people. And I will go over and say, even though he talked a little bit about competition, that this applies to people who are going to compete in physique endeavors also. Do you know why? They make up less than 1% of people who live a training lifestyle. Okay? That gets highlighted way too much in internet fitness. That, contest prep. Almost none of you guys are going to contest prep. You're a tiny, non-existent demographic. The overwhelming majority of people who live a fitness lifestyle and even train hard are never at any point in their life going to step on a bodybuilding stage, men's physique stage, or be on the cover of a magazine, do a real modeling shoot. Never going to happen. Less than 1%. That should be about as big of a topic as bulking up to compete in the world's strongest man or super heavyweight powerlifter. About the same number of people do both of those. These are not topics we should even be discussing for the most part. They're ridiculous outliers. Everyone else, 99% of the population who lifts is never going to be in either one of those categories. Should be a non-topic. So let's come over to the point. He also pointed out that a person who is down close to contest lean, if you're really ripped or you're anorexic or really lightweight, you're going to have to bulk. You're not going to be able to stay down at maintenance calories and gain muscle because you're not going to have the training energy and recovery. And if you feel like crap, as he pointed out when he did his show there, he was talking about a contest lean. I mean, that specific show, obviously he's done a number of them. That you can't train, you can't perform your best. You might look good, and the looking good is subjective. I'd say a lot of people don't realize and who get this myopic view in the fitness world to the average person that doesn't look good. So just so that you guys understand, being 7% body fat doesn't look good to most people. Most people don't think that looks good. So that is from a very, very tiny, you have your blinders on in that community think it does. But as he pointed out, you don't have the energy to train. So I think really what Greg is saying, and if what he's implying is that the amount of body fat you have is going to determine your caloric intake needs because it's going to affect your training, your energy, and your recovery. And that's the gist of what he seems to be saying. And if that's the case, I think he is dead on. He is spot on accurate. What do we mean? Someone who's 10% body fat is not going to be able to stay at caloric maintenance and gain muscle without drugs, right? If you're 10% body fat and you are not willing to gain a little weight, you are not going to gain muscle mass. And it's not because we necessarily need a big caloric surplus to gain muscle. We don't. I've been recomping all year. I have stayed in the 220 range or just a hair under for the entirety of this year. I have gained muscle and strength as an advanced lifter in my 40s, right? Because I have enough body fat to get away with it. I have enough body fat still in order to make progress as long as I keep my protein intake high and my training programming dialed in while staying at the same body weight, because I can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. I'm not ultra lean. It's like he pointed out, someone who say you're 15%. Well, I started recomping at 17 on a DEXA scan. If you're 15% body fat, you're at a nice healthy body fat range. You're not really lean, but you're healthy. That gives you a massive amount of wiggle room. And I'll agree, anyone who's in the mid-teens, if you're anywhere from 14 up to about 17, 18% body fat, you're actually really in that sweet spot. You're in a sweet spot in terms of body fat to where gaining muscle, losing fat, things like that without significant changes in body weight are fairly easy to do. They're pretty easy to do at that point. But you come back down, and when you're talking about, as he's talking about, someone who's contest lean or someone who's anorexic, you're not going to have the energy reserves to train. So someone who's the mid-teens, you can recomposition. That is a good sweet spot for recomping. If protein is high enough, if your diet is quality, if your training programming is dialed in. The training programming is a big one. That's where people mess up on recomps. It's not the diet side. Look, it's calories and protein. Okay, that's really what that comes down to. Is your training programming dialed in? Is that perfected? Are you reaching the training volumes you need to stack on size and strength, to get an adequate stimulus, but not pushing so hard that you can't recover? Is it balanced correctly? That's the biggest factor there for recomping at a body fat percentage like that. And it can be done. It can absolutely be done. I've been doing it. I have clients who do it. But we come over to that point of the person who's ultra lean, they are not going to have the energy. If you're 9% body fat or 10% body fat, you're on that edge of leanness to where you can't really get any leaner without your hormones tanking, without your energy tanking, without losing muscle mass. And you're also at that point to where your energy's down, recovery is down, without really serious training fuel because you don't have enough body fat reserve for your body to tap into. And people say, what do you mean you're not burning that during training? You're burning it between sets, right? You're burning fat for a fuel source once the heart rate comes down between sets. You're burning fat as a fuel source immediately post-workout. You have a reserve, and that reserve gives you better training fuel, gives you higher work capacity. If you don't have that, you're simply going to have more calories to train. You're going to have more calories to recover. You're probably going to have to gain weight to gain muscle. Because what else are you going to do? Do you really think you're going to lose fat, more fat, while gaining muscle? You're not going to do it at that point, not without drugs. You have to bulk at that point to gain muscle. You're going to have to. And when we say bulk, we don't mean you go from 10% body fat to 25% body fat in 6 weeks. It means the scale weight's going to have to be going up. Okay? It's going to have to. Because you don't have the training fuel, the energy reserves, or recovery. Conversely, if you're 20% or more body fat, if you are 20% or more body fat, you should be able to recomposition in a deficit because you've already pre-bulked. You already bulked. You already put the fuel in. You have an energy reserve to tap into. A perfect example, like one of my clients right now, I mentioned him the other day, his DEXA scan when I started working with him was 24% body fat. Now, he's not like an ultra advanced lifter. Right? His max bench was 215 when we started. But when I say 24% body fat, if he's got a 215 bench, he's not a really big guy. This is not a 250-pound person. Okay? If you have a 215 bench and you're 24% body fat, you probably are less than 200 pounds. And he was. So it's kind of that, been training a little bit of a base build, but still kind of skinny fat. What happened? In a relatively short period of time, in a small caloric deficit, the guy gained muscle. So he took his body fat from 24 to under 20%, and his 215 bench as of this week, he did 220 for 3 sets of 3 with a 1-count pause on every rep. Full pause reps. So he took his 1 rep max and now does 5 pounds more for 3 sets of 3. Now, is that a massive increase? No. But what do we know about bench press? Usually when you're losing body fat and losing weight, bench press is the first thing to tank. And it's the most muscle related, the most body weight related. Well, if you've lost some body weight and your body fat percentage has come down, and his has come down a lot. I don't even have a new DEXA because it hasn't been enough time, but I've got update pictures, and this person's waistline has come down. Their stomach is flatter. Their shoulders are wider. But they've only lost a few pounds of body weight. It's not been like 10 or 12 pounds or anything. It's not been this crazy body weight change. They're down, so they're in a deficit, but he's gaining strength even on his upper body. He's gaining muscle mass, right? Because he's over 20% body fat and on really good training programming. You can be in a deficit and gain muscle. And gain good muscle. Because, I mean, I don't care where you're at, objectively speaking, if anybody out there in a couple of months' time, you take your 1 rep max and you start doing reps with 5 pounds more on your bench while losing fat, that's a perfect scenario. That's a perfect scenario. So, even in my own experience dealing with clients, he's right. Essentially, whether you're going to bulk or cut someone while trying to gain muscle still, because that's the point. We're not talking about contest prep, because guys who are getting ripped, you're going to lose muscle. There is a 100% chance you're going to lose muscle getting ripped, right? Not what we're talking about. We're talking about making any gains in muscle mass of do you have to gain weight, recomp, or lose weight to do it. And what Greg is saying, and he's right, and I treat my clients the exact same way, it depends on what your body fat is right now. That's going to be a big factor. That's what's going to determine which of those you have to do in an ideal environment. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.